Hi friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams. Today it's time for another shelf spotlight where I get to highlight different books on my shelves that all have something in common. And today we're going to be talking about books that have to do with travel. I have 13 books here today, and all of them have a travel or journey as a big part of the story. Not just that they go to a new place once in the book, but that the journey of getting there or the road trip or whatever is a big part of the story. Sometimes I have a higher percentage of books that are unread, but it's kind of hard to know if travel or journey is a big part of the story if I haven't yet read the book. So the majority of the books I'm talking about today I have actually read, and they're still on my shelves, which means I liked them enough to keep them. So let's just look and see what I've got. So I'm going to start with 3 middle grade books. I love all 3 of these books. The first one is Walk Two Moons, which is a Newbery winner. This is by Sharon Creech. In this one, we follow a young girl named Salamanca, and she, along with her grandparents, take a road trip to go find her mother. And along the way, she's telling her grandparents the story of some situations with her neighbor, and it helps her to process things as she's telling them this story. The grandparents' relationship is goals for me. It's beautiful. I love the grandparents. I love Salamanca. I loved this book so much, and it takes place on the road. The whole thing takes place on the road. So definitely a travel book. The next middle grade book I have is Where the Mountain Meets the Moon by Grace Lin. In this one, our main character, Min Lee, wants to travel to the man in the moon to ask him a question because her family is struggling, her mom is not happy, and she goes on a journey to find the man in the moon so that she can get her questions answered and hopefully help her family ultimately. So along the way, she meets a dragon, she meets these other people, like we get her journey along the way. And this one is pretty unique as well because there are Chinese folklore and legends woven into the original story. So it's like a story within a story, and it's fantastic. It's very cool. I loved that one. I loved all of these, let's be honest. Next is The Remarkable Journey of Coyote Sunrise. I need to get that sticker off. By Jan Meinhardt. This is a middle grade. Again, I've already said that. These first 3 are middle grade. And this one is one that you'll need the tissues for. In this one, we follow Coyote and her dad. And they have a schoolie, a converted school bus that they travel around in. They just adventure all over the United States and pick up and meet people along the way. Coyote wants to go back to their hometown for a specific reason, but she knows her dad does not want to go back there. So she has to kind of manipulate him a little bit and get him to head in that direction. And there's a kind of a time crunch for that. So it's a beautiful story, heartbreaking. I loved it. And they're on the road the whole way. And I love kind of like the found family that you can meet when you're traveling and going new places. The next one I have is technically considered middle grade, I think, but probably more YA, and that's The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I really could put the whole Lord of the Rings series because that whole story arc is a journey. And the same with this one. But in this one, we follow Bilbo Baggins, who is a hobbit, happy with living in a hobbit hole, resting, eating, living his peaceful, quiet life in the Shire. But then one day Gandalf arrives at his hobbit hole with 13 dwarfs, and Bilbo is kind of recruited to go on this journey and this quest along with them. And so we travel all through Middle Earth, and it is delightful. I love The Hobbit so much. And Bilbo grows and changes along the way and finds a strength within himself he wasn't sure was there. So that's a lovely book. The next 2 I've talked about quite a few times, so I'm not going to say too much about them, but these were both among my favorites of this year. Clearly, I like books where there's travel or a journey involved. Where the Lost Wander by Amy Harmon is kind of set on the Oregon Trail, so it's that adventure west in a wagon train. That is the travel aspect of this one. Fabulous. 2 young people on the trip. One of them is a young widow. She lost her husband very quickly. They were only married maybe a year or 2. And then we have a young half Pawnee, half white young man who is bringing his mules, and these 2 connect, and it's very heavy and deep at times. But also, if you enjoyed ever playing Oregon Trail when you were younger, like I did, this book is like Oregon Trail fictionalized into a book. They have to deal with cholera and hunting buffalo and crossing rivers. Do I ford them? Do we take a ferry? Do we try to swim across? All of these things. So it definitely felt like a fictionalized version of Oregon Trail. And so that question of, are they going to make it? How many people are going to die in this trauma this situation. So yeah, it was very good. Very good. And then This Tender Land by William Kent Kruger, which kind of has Huckleberry Finn vibes. We follow these 4 children in this one who are kind of escaping from an Indian school for Native American children that was not a school. It was definitely an attempt by the government to erase the Indian from these young people, chopping off their hair, not allowing them to speak their language. There was a lot of abuse happening. And then a situation happens where these 4 kids need to get out of Dodge. And so they get a boat and they float down the river. And it takes place around the time of the Depression, but there is definitely people that they meet along the way. We're following their journey all the way through this book. That's the main part of the book, and it's fabulous. I loved this one so much. A YA book that I loved, very different from any of the others that I've talked about so far, is Wolf by Wolf by Ryan Groudon and its sequel, Blood for Blood. This is kind of a reimagining of history. What if the Axis powers won World War II as opposed to the Allied powers? So what if Germany and Japan won World War II? In this world of this book, that's what happened. So there's this motorcycle race every year, and we follow our protagonist. Oh man, I haven't read this in years. Yael. We follow Yael. She is determined to enter this motorcycle race, win, so that she can kill Hitler. Like, that is her goal. Oh, the other thing to note is that she's a shapeshifter. So she kind of takes on the identity of somebody else who's already entered into the race, which is how she's able to enter in the first place. Definitely doesn't sound like a book I would normally enjoy, but I really did love this book. I don't know if I read it now, if I would still like it as much, but yeah, the journey of this motorcycle race is a big part of this book. So that is why it's included in this video. A book that has had some mixed reviews from people, but I really liked, is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I listened to this on audio at the beginning of the year, a couple years ago, when I was trying to read all my short books. In this book, we follow Santiago, who is a young shepherd boy in Spain, and he goes on this journey to Egypt to find a hidden treasure in the pyramids along the way, also searching for his dreams and his destiny and his purpose in life. And he meets people along the way. It has a little touch of magic in it. I really enjoyed this one. I really loved listening. I loved the listening experience of this. And yeah, he travels from Spain to Egypt and throughout the course of this little teeny tiny book. It's a good one. The last book that I've already read that I wanted to talk about is Peace Like a River by Leif Anger. This is one of those books that when people talked about it, I wasn't sure it was going to be a book for me. But Katie from Life Between Words absolutely loved this book, and she recommended that I pick it up. So I did, and I loved it. In this one, we follow a father and his 2 children. They go on a quest, a journey, looking for the oldest brother, the oldest son, who has been charged controversially with murder. They don't think that he's done it. Faith is a big part of this. The boy Reuben, I think it's written from his perspective. So we're hearing from an 11-year-old's perspective. He desperately believes in miracles. The father is a man of faith. The youngest one is Swede. She's a girl, and she is a little poet in the making. She has just a lot of charm. There's just so much about this book that I really loved. It definitely deals with how to hold on to your faith in the midst of struggles and believing in miracles and persevering and family and hope. Yeah, there's so much about this book that is just beautiful, and it's beautifully written as well. It takes place in the Midwest, so if you like books set in the Midwest, this is definitely one to consider if you haven't read it already. It's very good. And then I have 4 more books that I have not yet read that all, from what I'm aware of, deal with a journey or an adventure or a road trip, like The Road Trip by Beth O'Leary. I had to include this one. Obviously, The Road Trip is right in the title. In this one, we follow 2 exes who are kind of forced to take a road trip together. But this is going to take place in England. Beth O'Leary has also written the Flat Share and The Switch, which I enjoyed both of those. So I'm really hopeful that I'm going to like this one as well. But this one does take place on the road. Then we have Calling Me Home, which is another road trip journey. In this one, we follow an older woman, Isabel, who's 89 years old. She asks her hairdresser, Dory, who is a single mom, a Black single mom, to drive her from Texas to a funeral in Cincinnati, Ohio. So they go on a road trip from Texas to Ohio. Along the way, we learn about Isabel's kind of forbidden love affair with a Black man when she was younger, and other things along the way in this relationship between these 2 women, and just hearing each other's stories and the power of listening to each other. 2 unlikely friends, one journey that will change their lives forever. sounds really good. This is one of my Christmas book exchange gifts. Lindsay gave this to me. I do have one that I just recently hauled, The Library of Legends by Janie Chang. I was very excited to find this at a library book sale for just $1 or $2. In this one, we follow a group of Chinese students, I believe. In 1937, Japanese bombs start falling in China, and 19-year-old and her classmates at university, they go on a walking journey across China, and they bring this book, this important manuscript. What is it? A 500-year-old collection of myths and folklore known as the Library of Legends. So on their journey across China, this group of students is also tasked with protecting this priceless collection of stories and legends. So that sounds really beautiful, like this love of story and importance of it, but also this journey across China. So I just think that that sounds really good, really good. And finally, I have a nonfiction called At Home in the World, Reflections and Belonging While Wandering the Globe by Tish Oxenreider. I used to listen to Tish's podcast. I don't anymore. I know that Tish and her husband and their 3 children go backpacking around the world, and they do school while they're out there. They do all the things, and this is just their story of traveling the world with a backpack and what that meant for their family, the different things that they learned, the different places that they went. So it's not one journey from point A to point B, but it's kind of this family's journey of traveling the world. And I just think it sounds lovely. So here are my books about travel. Yes, I can get them all in. I'm really excited to share these books with you. Some of them I've talked about a lot before. Some of them it's been a long time since I've talked about them. I would love to know if you've read any of these books, if you're interested in reading any of these books. Also, what other travel books come to mind when you think of that? I know People We Meet on Vacation is a big one that I just read, but I've already unhauled that and it's not on my shelves, so I couldn't talk about it today. But I would love to know any other travel, journey, road trip books where the journey is a big part of the story. If you think of any other ones that you think I might like, let me know down in the comments below. You guys know I love chatting with you in the comments, so let's talk about anything down there. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. I would love for you to subscribe and stick around for when I post new videos. And that's it for today. I'll talk to you in another video very soon. Bye.